Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome to Tech and Sundry, and welcome to us looking at the Fisher-Price 826 tape recorder from 1980. Fisher-Price, which is owned by Quaker Oats, and for some of you, you'll even recognize this. Some of you may have even made radio shows on something very, very similar. It is a magnetic tape recorder, and for anyone who doesn't know what a magnetic tape recorder is, well, music used to? Still does come on cassette tapes. They are seeing a bit of a resurgence these days. You have a magnetic tape, you have a reader which kind of sits in the middle, and there's stripes along the tape itself which has music on them, or in this case, The Shell Seekers by Rosamund Pilcher. Yeah, this is an audiobook. In order to record your radio play or whatever you would normally record, you probably put a TDK in there. So a cassette tape, this is a sealed cassette tape, and you would hit record. So we have a few controls. We have play, forward, rewind, record. We have volume, and we have stop and eject. So stop and eject is very, very self-explanatory. It just pops the thing right out. And interestingly, the cassette tape is now facing you because if you were going to be designing something for children, they might spill juice or fruit or whatever they happen to be eating down into the mechanism. You don't want the read head facing forward, because if you do that, if you put everything in normally, what's going to happen is it'll all get gummed up. So this is very much designed with kids in mind. You put the tape in and then close it up and then hit play and adjust the volume here. So we have a few other bits and pieces to look at. We have the microphone input. Mono microphone, and I believe there might even be a little delay between hitting record and something happening. Also on the back, oh yeah, look at these colors. On the back we have the mono output, so it is a speaker, and there are some vents on one side and some vents on the other side, I guess to sort of spread the audio out, maybe? It's a bit of a weird one, but for most people, yeah, you're gonna recognize this thing. The colors are brown, sort of vomit colored beige, and regular beige up the middle, which is, it's a thing. In order to power it, we are going to need 4 C-cell batteries. These guys are chunky. But wait, don't you have like a lithium-ion battery? No. Does it not charge using a USB? No. What is going on? How do you get this thing to work? Well, you pop the bottom off, and then you put in a bunch of batteries. Requires 4 C-size 1.5 volt alkaline batteries via Batterzellen 1.5 volt alkaline. Yeah, you kind of get the idea. If you're buying one of these secondhand, the battery bay is very important to check because, well, there's a little bit of marking there and some there. This side is very clear and clean, but if you're buying one of these off of eBay, you want to make sure there's no sort of green fuzz and fur on the inside because alkaline batteries leak. After a while, what people would do is they would leave them in the toy boxes, toy chests or whatever, and the batteries would just kind of leak alkaline goo everywhere. If that's happened to you, use a bit of vinegar, a little bit of white vinegar just to clean up the alkali. Alkali, vinegar, alkali, acid, that's kind of how you clean that up. I would not take a nail file or just any regular file and start trying to clean that up because you'll just remove the coating from the metal pickups. Anyway, there is something interesting here on the battery bay. A little bit of foam that's 40 years old and still squishy, which is kind of neat. Yeah, they really engineered this thing, but it has some writing on here. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to face it into the light. So it says 826, which is the model number of the machine. It says 1980 Fisher-Price Toys, division of the Quaker Oats Company, East Aurora, New York, 14052, assembled in Hong Kong, patents pending. So if we can get some light on there, that's exactly what I've just read. Quaker Oats, Fisher-Price, same thing. What I'm going to do is look at the way the batteries go in. It is easier to do it this way, I think. And squish it in. There we go. And then that way, and then sort of squish it in. It's a little bit of sprung steel there, just holding everything in place. Put the battery bay in. Now, there is something about this battery bay which is a little bit unique. There's no screw hole here. Modern devices have a screw over the battery bay in order to, well, screw the batteries in, so the kids can't take the batteries out and consume them. If you eat a battery, it is very, very bad. You have to go to the doctors and have to get the battery taken out because it can damage the internal linings and membranes of your body. Now we have that in, what do we have actually in the machine? Take that out. We have, this actually came with the machine from eBay. This is not your original one? No, we did have one as a kid. My sisters did make radio shows on them. There was also a yellowy orange cassette that would have come with this. It would have been a Fisher-Price brand cassette, and it had some music on it. I think it had music on one side, and then you flip it over and the other side was blank so you could record to it. I believe the music on the Fisher-Price tape absolutely slapped. Like, it was really good music. I think you can find it on YouTube if you look. This one that came with it, though, is Peters & Lee Favorites. Peters & Lee, Wonderful Baby. Guess You'll Never Know. The Crying Game. Alright, okay. Lots of music that I have never heard before. Why don't we just put in a bit of audiobook? Hotter headline audiobooks. The Shellseekers by Rosamund Pilcher. She died not so long ago, but she does write, or has written, some very, very good books. Anyway, let us open the machine. It does say record right here. Aren't you afraid of accidentally recording over your audiobook if you push the wrong button? No, you can't really see it here, but I'll show you on this one. The way you did copy protection, or the way you stopped yourself recording over something, is these gaps here. If they are open, if you have nothing stopping anything going into these holes, then you can't record to these tapes. What you would do if you wanted to record to these tapes is put a bit of sellotape over the holes, and then you could record to them. But having the holes, it's a little security method of just stopping accidentally trashing your own tapes. Let's do that, and let's see what this thing sounds like. Pop that in. Now, as far as the volume goes, it goes 1, 2, 3. I think that's all. Yeah, about 3. So we're going to put it all the way down and go 1, and then hit play.
You've got all those things, but with all the people to take care of here, it's just the leisure you're missing out on. They kissed. Good night, my darling, Sophie said. 2 days later, at midday, Penelope was chopping vegetables at the kitchen sink when she heard the telephone
the way
ring.
you stop
dropped
the tape
knife and
is
headed
to push
for
the
the
button
sitting room.
halfway,
But Laura...
and that actually just stops the tape. If you want to eject the tape, you push it all the way, which is kind of neat. It is a way of saving on buttons, making the whole thing much, much less complex. Otherwise, you would need another little hole here, another button that says stop. They really thought of just about everything. What happens if you actually want to record your own audio, though? Well, that's where the TDK comes in. So we have 60 minutes, life on record. Right. We're going to need to open this up, and I don't think it has an easy way of opening it. Let us just... So we have our tape. It is in a little plastic box, almost like a jewel case. We have A and B here, and if you were to, say, record tracks off the radio or from cassette to cassette, you could write all the track names down here, and if you've ever heard of a mixtape, well, that's kind of how you do it. You buy a blank tape, and then you record, usually not on something like this, but something that has 2 cassette players, and you can just record from one cassette player to another by hitting stop and record and just kind of making yourself a collection of tracks. That's way, way, way before you could just have an MP3 list on a mobile phone. What we're going to do is open it up, take the cassette out, and put the box to one side. Now you might say, oh, how do you record to this if you can't record to the other tapes? That is an excellent question. It's very hard to see because this is clear plastic, but the holes which normally stop you recording to a tape on the one that we've just opened there is actually plastic in those holes here and here, and I can feel it if I put my finger over it. If we wanted to record something on here and then lock it in, we would break the plastic tabs off of here and here. We have B, we have A, we have 60. So it's a 60-minute tape. There's a TDK, and we are going to put it in A side first because the spool on the A side is all full up. Now what we could do is we could record everything onto the A side, flip it over, and then record more stuff. You don't flip it over and then hit play and things start playing backwards. You can record in one direction and then record again in a different direction with basically twice as much stuff. We know we need to put the A side in, and we know the recording head is up in the top. Open it up, pop the tape in, close it. Now what we don't know is how long it's going to take between us hitting record and actual audio starting to play. So what I'm going to do is time it. And since we are using a machine from the 1980s, why don't we just use a wristwatch? I've got my Zeppelin LZ129 Hindenburg, which is that's the watch I usually have on during the vlogs. Why don't we just hit up record and then start counting from about the halfway mark. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Then we'll hit stop. And then what we'll do is we will hit rewind. And we will hit play. 8, 9, 10. From the very beginning of the tape, there's about an 8-second delay, but the machine itself will record basically straight away, and the quality is, well, it's not great. It's not great at all. What we're going to do is just talk into it. So I've rewound to the point where the tape is about to pick up. So what we can do is just try and record something, and I'm going to get a little closer to the old microphone and say, HMI module Alpha Humana on approach to space station Mercury. Okay, let's see if we can do that. So we hit rewind and then hit play. HMI module Alpha Humana on approach to space station Mercury. Well, it works, and it works about as well as I remember. Yep, you could probably get it a little clearer if we clean the cassette head. There were tapes that you could get which had like a fabric cassette instead of a magnetic tape cassette, and it would just run on the actual tape head itself. The other thing we can do is probably open this thing up. If we flip it over, there's only 2, 4, 6 screws holding this thing together, and you might be thinking, would I not want to open this up? I think I actually do want to open this up. So this is the machine open. You've got to be a little bit careful here because we have a big old magnet as the speaker here. And so if you get your cassette tapes and rub it over the magnetic tape is not going to like that, and you will probably ruin your cassette tapes. We have a couple of cables, very fragile, routed along the bottom into a control board. The control board is quite deep. It goes in there quite a long way. There are quite a few capacitors which look fairly clean, a lot of surface mounted resistors. So if something happens, you can take the whole board out and just kind of replace all of the surface mounted components. It does mean that these things are repairable should things go wrong. We have the buttons on the top which are just held in with the 2 halves of the case. The components are actually held in on the white plastic bits. The white plastic bit you see on the side is the bit that actually holds all of this together. You have a band which runs round these 3 wheels. You have a motor here, and play, which is up here, pushes this reed switch in. So if I were to poke it with a screwdriver, everything starts moving. That's kind of neat. So there is a cassette tape in there, and the sound will come out of here. So that's how that works. Interesting. We can fast forward, probably. And reverse. There we go. Cool. I'm just going to put it all back together and hope it all still works at the end of this. And it is back together, which is good. Hopefully it still plays, because there was a moment after I reassembled it and there was nothing. The speaker farted and there was a lack of sound, and I was like, oh no, have I broken this 44-year-old cassette player? The answer is no. What I did is cracked it open again, rubbed around the inside with a Q-tip and some lighter fluid, which is probably not the best stuff to use, but if you have a railway, you may be used to this sort of way of cleaning electrical contacts. Does it work? I mean, yes, my granddad used it, my dad used it, and well, I'm now using it. And what came out? 44 years of funk, so there was a bit of an electrical issue on the inside, but now it should still work.
There was news parade, which was most mornings. Sophie imagined them blown up, buried in rubble. Finally, she decided she had to go in person.
Good, excellent, so everything still works. This thing is relatively bulletproof as well. I bought one for my little sister. Now, my sisters would have used this to make radio shows when they were kids, and it was a bit of a nostalgia thing. But my sister also has my 2-year-old nephew, her 2-year-old son, and he absolutely loved it. He's used to driving around in the back of a car with a mobile phone strapped to the back of a car seat, and he's watching like YouTube Kids or whatever. This thing is 40 years, or made 40 years before he was born. And he absolutely loves it. It's his radio. He loves pushing the buttons. I mean, it's always fast forward, rewind, hit record, hit play, hit the button to eject the thing. The tactile feedback on this thing is amazing. It's something you just don't get with a mobile phone or an MP3 player with a cassette recorder, and hopefully it should now record a little clearer when we use our TDKs. But I'm going to leave it there for the time being. So this was an interesting look back at, well, quite a few people's pasts actually. If you like these videos, definitely leave a little like, leave a subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. If you want notifications, dingle the bingle. If you don't want notifications, don't click the bell, and I'll tell you what, I'll catch you next time.